ترتبط الثقافة القائمة على العار أو العيب بالمرض العقلي والإدمان على المخدرات. فما هي كيفية التعامل مع هذه المشكلة في مجتمعنا العربي الأمريكي؟ وما مدى تأثير فيروس الكورونا على الصحة العقلية والإدمان؟ مساء الخير لكل مشاهدينا مشاهدي واتساب ميديا نتورك. بيسعدني دايما أن نكون معكم، وبيسعدني أن نرحب بكل أسئلتكم وتعليقاتكم عبر الواتساب ميديا نتورك فيسبوك لايف. Mental illness and substance abuse stigma continue to be a barrier for Arab Americans in our community, and dealing with quarantine is very hard as it is, with mixed emotions like anxiety and fear of uncertainty are on the rise. But what about the people with pre-existing conditions like mental illness and substance abuse? It is so crucial today to shed a light on this subject and bringing it up to the surface. So I am happy today to welcome two wonderful ladies from Access, which is the largest Arab American nonprofit organization in the United States. Makki, Director of Community Health and Resource Center, and also Abdallah-Hijazi, Community Engagement Manager. Welcome. Hello, ladies.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Hello.
Good. How
Thank
are
you
you?
for having us.
Are you guys doing okay?
Good.
Yes.
Good. Well, I'm going to start with you, Mona. First of all, mental illness is a very sensitive subject in our community, and people intend to shy away from it. Why do you think it's still a taboo now in this day and time and age?
Well, stigma around mental illness continues to be one of the biggest barriers, prohibiting people from getting the help that they need. The key is education, and the more that we talk about mental illness and start treating it, as an illness, as any other illness or condition, we will start changing the way that people think about it. And it's really the key is education here. Stigma has been noted in all the literature and research. You're right, for decades now, but we continue as a community to have this challenge. And again, the key is education.
So, Mona Hijazi, you're an community engagement manager. The shame-based culture associated with substance abuse disorder is preventing people from getting the help that they need. If we don't, instead of, addressing the issue, we always shove it under the rug. How can we address it properly?
So the best way to do this type of work is to work with your stakeholders in your community. The coalition that I oversee for Access is our Access Substance Abuse Community Coalition. And the key in that is community. We work with our stakeholders from law enforcement and faith in schools, healthcare providers, people in recovery, which are people who have survived and are now, re-entering society after their journey through getting treatment for substance abuse or mental illness. What we like to do is to work with them to hold community forums, and as Mona was saying, the education component. So we first started this work by simply providing people with the educational tools to help them understand that addiction is a disease and to understand this topic. It's the taboo around it has a lot to do with lack of knowledge and understanding. And that's okay. It's our role as leaders to help them understand this by holding these forums, holding town halls, engaging our parents, engaging our students, and also bridging the gap between everyone. So where parents and youth are together in the conversations and learning how to have these conversations with each other. And one component that we do to help break the stigma is to have people who are in recovery put a face to it. Have them feel comfortable with coming back into society, working, living, giving back. This is a big part of their recovery process. And so I can say that at Access, we've hired individuals who are our peer coaches who understand this firsthand and who have better knowledge than any of us on how to have individuals go to treatment and to get the help that they need.
Do you think Arab Americans are more prone to substance abuse than the mainstream?
So addiction has no face, and I have to say that it's across the board. Our community, just like other communities, the work that I do, I work with coalitions throughout the United States, and I meet people that come from all aspects of life. And one thing that we all have in common is it doesn't matter what you look like or how much money you have or what family you come from, or regardless. With this type of disease, mental illness or addiction, it has no face to it. You know, it's not going to.
Yes. So, Mona, what are the factors that contribute to mental illness?
Well, I mean, you could look at a number of factors. I mean, you can look at it from a biological, neurological, environmental factors. When we look at specifically the Arab American population, you know, what are some contributing factors to their depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder? You know, we look at discrimination, for example, look at the immigrant and refugee population. So these are some of the factors. Religion plays a factor. You know, when I started at Access 15 years ago, I started off as a therapist in the mental health department. And at that time, we were seeing a large number of cases, but that they wanted to, you know, treat mental illness with the religion. You know, and then we realized that we really needed to work very closely with our faith community to make sure that we were educating them on, you know, the biological and neurological factors and also other factors that I mentioned. But it's extremely, you know, important, again, you know, that education component. And, you know, the numbers back then, we were seeing a large number, but nothing nearly as what we are seeing today. So that proves that education and raising awareness about mental illness is helping, but we need to do more. Definitely need to do more. But the number and volume of clients coming to Access has increased tremendously, and that's a good sign. And you know, the one factor that I want to emphasize on is when you have a loved one that's experiencing mental illness, it's very, very hard, especially within the Arab American community. You know, we talk about shame and taboo, and we talk about the families and the parents looking at it as it's a failure on their end. And there's just a lot of things that you know, families consider and struggle with at the same time. But, you know, the more that we educate people that this is an illness and that it's treatable, and the sooner that you get the help that you need, along with the appropriate diagnosis, the majority of these people go back and live normal lives, you know, and that's the key. But what I see happening in our community is sometimes they struggle 5 years and 10 years. And you know where they end up? In the hospital, in the jails, you know, struggling in the streets. And, you know, that can be prevented. It could be prevented by seeking help. And the other issue that I think that we struggle with in the Arab American community is the role of a therapist. You know, there's always, you know, when somebody says they need mental health, oh, you know, they say the term crazy, you know, and nobody wants that to be associated with that term. And, you know,
they don't want to be labeled.
Absolutely. And that prevents them from getting into treatment in a timely manner. But are
you seeing a shift of attitude toward this topic, you know, when it comes to the new generation now?
Absolutely. They are more likely to seek help. You know, they understand that it's okay to see a therapist. It doesn't, you know, if people can understand the role of the therapist and the benefits of seeking therapy, I think more people would be likely to see it more actually as a luxury than anything else. You know, the confidentiality that's held within the patient and client and just the level of support that one receives is, you know, tremendous and extremely helpful.
So for Mona H, why people wait to seek help until it's too late?
You know, it's a process for everyone, right? This is very different for each person. It's like any type of medical issue that you might have. You know, we know that a lot of times people keep their health till the end. You know, they take care of their families, they worry about their bills. There's such a process that they're worried about so many other things, and health is the last thing. And for the longest time, you know, this was looked at as, you know, these people are the people who are looking to get, you know, have a mental illness or have substance use. They were looked at as people who are fearful, and so that caused a barrier for so many people. And as Mona was saying, you know, the role of the therapist and changing the perception helps eliminate and reduce the person's ability to come in and to seek treatment. It's very difficult for an individual who is dealing with these difficulties to take the step. It is very possible, but it's our role as a community to break those barriers that are around them in order for them to seek treatment. You know, and with the younger generation, you asked about them. I have to tell you that, you know, in the city of Dearborn and Dearborn Heights, for the first time ever, we have a youth group that focuses on substance abuse and mental health. This didn't exist. You know, youth in the high schools didn't talk about this. And we helped them shed light amongst their peers, and they learn from each other. You know, youth lead youth. You know, our peers listen to peers. And so we provide them with the tools and the empowerment to be the voices of the future. You know, we have to look at our youth in a different lens now. You know, they're much smarter than we were when we were at their age. They have more at their tip of their fingers, and we have to be okay with that. You know, we have to be okay with what's coming, and we have to also teach them from the past. You know, and so these kids are just a fresh of breath air for us. You know, when you hear them talking about what they want to see and the changes that they want to see and how they want to help their friends and help their peers, it really is a movement. And I couldn't be more happier to be leading this coalition that created this youth group. You know, I started off 4 years ago with a young girl. And I honestly, she was amazing. She came to me from the Dearborn School Administration, and she had a letter in her hand that she wrote about her cousin who overdosed to heroin. Mm-hmm. And I read this letter, and I looked at her and I said, "What do you want me to do?" And she's like, "I want to reach other kids." Fast forward to 4 years now, I have over 3 youth groups at the high schools. We're moving into our 4th high school, and we are moving these kids to taking them to advocate at, you know, with their elected officials. Mm-hmm. They look into policy work. They look into what works and doesn't work. They've done vendor education. They've been on the ground. They've gone to local hookah shops and educated them about sales to minors. They've been in front of Dearborn City Council. Mm-hmm. If we get out of this, you know, this times that we're doing, a few of them are going with me to a national conference. It's really nice to be able to give them the tools they need to be our future, right? I mean,
yeah, that's very inspiring.
We have to provide them with what we can. And as a mother, I you know, that part of me comes out, and I want to be able to give, you know, my children and people's children with the work that we do. And the reason I feel like I found my passion is that community is all about people. And for me, and you know, and I know you know how Mona is, having Mona as a leader, the bar is up here. So you know, you realize that you don't notice that when you're working so fast and nonstop that you're the impact that you're making. But then sometimes you stop and you look up and you realize you're helping people.
Yeah, I can see the passion in your words. That's for sure, Mona. And I'm going to ask you, Mona, who is more susceptible to psychological order?
I mean, again, we talked about it's across the board. right? And, we first thought the Arab American community, many, many years ago, they weren't talking about mental illness, or it doesn't happen to us.
Yeah.
Today we realize that we're like any other community. We're not immune to these problems. And so again, it's the thing about mental illness is you can't treat any person like the next. Every client is unique in their experiences and in their circumstances and what they're presenting with. And again, mental health illness, refers to a range of mental health conditions that affect our mood, our behavior, our thinking. And then you also have the mild, moderate, and severe and chronic conditions. And that's why I was emphasizing on, people seeking help early, and getting to treatment as soon as possible, as soon as you start seeing a change in someone's behavior. The one thing I noticed in my 15 years in this career is you usually can sense when something is wrong with a friend or a loved one or a child. You sense it. And then you try to, figure out different coping skills, but sometimes that person is not able to help themselves on their own. And that's when you want to be able to reach for help. And I do want to focus on this pandemic. I don't think that there's not a single person out there that hasn't felt the stress and distress of this pandemic. So when we look at individuals with a history of mental illness, you can't help but to be concerned, because they're at increased risk for distress, especially, individuals with a history of depression and anxiety and post-traumatic disorder. And so we want to make sure that those individuals stay connected. One of the things that I've noticed is you drive around the community, all the doors are closed, and it's heartbreaking.
Okay.
But the services, the mental health services, the health services, they all still remain. I know at Access, we transitioned 500 staff to go remote in 24 hours. And we have a mental health department. We have over 50 mental health professionals, as Mona was talking about, with the substance abuse counselors and the peers and case managers and advocates. And we have, in our part of our mental health department is our domestic violence programming, in which we have attorneys. Our courts are closed right now, and people who have pending cases are, don't know what to do with child custody and divorce and PPOs. And, there was a new order that was just passed that any existing PPO, which is a personal protection order, has now been extended 90 days, and people need to reach out. And this is a time for us to stay connected more than ever, and to ensure that the individuals that need the help, that they have resources and access to that help.
But Mona, how do we know what's normal and when do we seek help? How do we know that?
So, I mean, if you look at depression, for example, right, we start seeing signs of depression, sadness, mood. And then, but the major thing that you want to look for is when a person starts to isolate themselves, they become very negative. You're looking at their, eating habits. You're looking at their sleeping patterns. A lot of people will start not sleeping or sleeping too much. They don't want to interact with anyone.
But everything is changing now. I mean, we do things that we've never done before. I mean, sometimes we get upset, and sometimes we isolate ourselves, not by choice. How do you know that this is because of the quarantine, or this is something that it's mental?
So it's normal, I mean, especially during a pandemic, to feel sad, to feel, a sense of disconnecting with people, a sense of anger, worry, fear. That is all normal. I don't think that there's a single person not experiencing, some aspect of that. But we're focusing on people that their routine has changed. Right. And now they're disconnected. They're isolated. They don't want to talk to anyone. People who, some stop eating, some stop showering. I mean, it's affecting their daily life. So right now, everybody's daily life has been affected one way or the other because of this pandemic. But you're looking at it to an extreme. You know, you're not looking at the ordinary, I'm just sad, it's a bad day, you know, I hate this, I hate, you know, being away from my friends, or, you know, this is more of, you know, people who have jobs who no longer want to do that job, even if it's at home. You know, people who don't want to connect with people, like, you know, someone trying to call their friend, trying to check up on them, and they just don't want to answer the phone. They don't have the energy. They're just sad. And you normally, it's about the affect too. You could normally look at that person. It's hard for them to smile. It's hard for them to talk. And I'm talking about extreme cases here, but that's also where I'm saying is that once the daily routine, you know, changes for people, that's a time to start getting concerned. And I recommend that if anyone is living with someone with a history of mental illness, you know, to stay connected, and not only that, to monitor them as well, and ensure that they're continuing to follow up with the therapist and their health providers. You know, being a part of being integrated in the community is so important for all of us, especially for individuals with a history of mental illness. And this is a very difficult time for so many, especially that population.
And you see, Mona, the high anxiety in our community, and this anxiety, I mean, unfortunately, is filtering, you know, into children. How do we help them around this time?
So it's important to obviously talk with our kids, depending on their developmental age, depending on how much information that they have access to. What do they understand about this pandemic? And and to talk to them, and we have to be honest with them. But at the end of the day, we have to assure that they're going to be safe and that, you know, this is going to pass. And you want to keep a positive, you know, tone to the conversation, because we don't want to create more fear. You know, this is what we're going through is very, very difficult, but we have learned also from other, situations like SARS and other, infections and viruses and stuff like that, that once it's over, the majority of people do recover and do return, you know, back to normal. But it takes time, and it varies from person to person. It varies from, you know, experiences and circumstances. You know, for example, someone who's lost a loved one during this time that has not had the chance to grieve is going to be, you know, it's going to take a little more.
It's going to take a while, for sure.
So that's why I'm saying it varies. There's no one situation that's exactly like the other. But we have to remain hopeful. We have to remain positive. We have to stay connected. We have to make sure that people who need help have access to that help. We need to, you know, encourage the community and continue to raise awareness around mental illness and substance use disorders, and get people the help that they need and the help that they deserve.
Absolutely. And this is for you, Mona H.
I feel bad for you. Sorry.
So isolation that was imposed on us. Are you seeing a behavior change during COVID-19? And that might indicate that people who had previously quit something are picking back up the habit, right?
So that's something that we've talked about as a team, that we wanted to make sure that our awareness around COVID and health disparities. We've done a lot of education. You know, we do weekly webinars, and this week we're focusing on hookah and vaping.
Okay.
And the reason for this is because we did know that that was something that was going to happen when someone is in a situation that we're in right now. Some of them do go back to bad habits. Something as simple as biting your nails.
And you know, a big factor is being bored. Believe it,
right?
Especially when you're smoking. Yes.
And you guys were talking earlier about, you know, with the youth and parents and how do you deal with this. So, you know, with these, what you want to do and what we recommend you do is to keep the structure, have a daily schedule. You know, keep the sleeping schedule the same, keep the routine the same. This helps individuals. You know, if you set a structure for yourself and for your family, it helps you get through the day where you're not, you know, thinking about, you know, I'm bored or what should I do? And we do recommend, you know, people are with safety precautions, you know, going outside and walking with social distancing if they can, making sure that people are doing activities in the home, As a family, this is actually a unique time. It gives us time to be around our loved ones more than we usually can. It's a very interesting time. It took some time to adjust, but I always recommend this to my closest loved ones, is to keep that schedule. I know it's hard, but it's very important, because you got to just look at it as everything is the same, but not the same, where you're home. And if you're lucky enough to be working from home, then you're working from home. If you're teaching your kids from home, then you'll be able to keep that structure. With youth, especially if they don't have structure, it's very hard for them.
You have to keep that structure.
Yeah, and to think about things that are outside of, like, you don't want to have them on the gaming too much. You don't want them to be on the TV too much. To do activities that are more hands-on. Really, you just gotta utilize all the resources. The schools have done an amazing job with providing resources for families in the cities of Dearborn and Dearborn Heights. They've provided, if it's homework, and the teachers are staying engaged. It's just a thing where you have to keep the structure and keep the momentum going, as Mona said. From the day we were sent home and we became remote, our team jumped up and they were ready to go. And a part of it was, we do these weekly webinars. We want people to stay engaged. I talked to Mona about women and support groups, and not just women who are dealing, we have support groups for women who are domestic violence cases, but I'm talking about working women at home, like myself, where I just want to, vent, have a cup of coffee and say, Sham Bisir, and it's okay. It's totally okay. I always try to stay on top of everything.
We seem to manage. I mean, we're working remotely. I mean, we can walk outside a little bit. I mean, we can do exercise and
it's okay to not have,
maybe, huh?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to work out online, just
right.
yeah, and read.
Today, our youth, one of our programs, our CHRC mental youth adolescent mental health program had a boot camp that was on Zoom, and it's free. And they did the first one today, and then like our coalition does webinars where you can engage, and we did one on mindfulness. Our youth,
how did that go?
It's really, I didn't get to join today's because I was busy working, but I will find out for you. I know that a lot of people are engaging into these things. Some people who never used to do virtual workouts or, go on YouTube and are now doing it.
Yeah, and we're learning, believe it or not. We are learning something new every day.
And it's just really important to do these things and to do things that make you happy. Before we got on here, I was talking to Mona, I work a lot and I love it. And if I'm not working with my work with Access, I'm working at home with my children. But I try to take time where I just sit down and I watch a show and I enjoy it and I chat with my friends and, just something
for yourself.
Yeah. So I really encourage people to find space for themselves. And my staff, one of our staff, she's a young soul. She really taught me about mindfulness. And she opened my eyes to understanding how to stay grounded and to take time. I didn't even realize how important it is to give yourself time in the morning to have a cup of coffee, and without working. And I learned that through this.
Having a cup of coffee in the morning is very meditating.
Yeah, so that's where I say these conversations, they can start off with something as simple as, when you're engaging your community and talking about mental illness and substance abuse, it doesn't have to be a harsh topic when you're opening up to people. You got to meet people where they're at, and you got to be able to just understand where you're coming from.
I think what they meant by social distancing, physical distancing, not social distancing.
Yeah.
We can always connect, right?
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, people think like sharing the facts about COVID-19 and keeping informed about everything about what's going on is really healing, or it makes the outbreak a little bit easier. Do you think, do you recommend, for people who are vulnerable at the moment, especially vulnerable to mental illness or some kind of addiction, to keep, to keep watching TV or to keep informed about COVID-19?
So it's important, obviously, to stay informed, and practicing social distancing and self-quarantine are very, very important. And we all have to follow the executive order for our safety and for the safety of others around us. Now, when it comes to how much information, right? This situation is very fluid, and it's changing every single day. And so that can create anxiety if all you're doing is watching TV and watching the news. It's just, you can barely keep up from, hour to hour. It's constantly changing. So the recommendation is to limit that as much as possible. Yes, stay informed, but some people are glued to the TV, and that's not healthy. During this time, it's important to maintain, physical activity, as you were talking about, to, maintain healthy eating habits, to watch for, change in sleep. That's going to be very, very important because everybody's schedule changed now. So again, these are important things, limiting the TV, the amount of time, and also the importance today more than ever is to stay connected with family and friends and the community. And there's many, many resources and outlets to do so. So I think those are very important things to do right now as we're going through this, this pandemic.
So, yes, Mona H, do you think the media is making the circumstances mentally worse?
As Mona said, limiting how much media a person takes in is important. Being stuck to the TV and stuck to anything is not healthy for someone. That's why you have to limit and take in what you need. And honestly, if you have any high concerns about your health, you want to talk to a medical professional if you have any questions or if you feel like you're not feeling good. But media is, it has its benefits and it has its negatives, right? We know that about any topic. I don't think just this topic in general, but now more than ever, we need it because it's the way to get our word out. And I do say that when it comes to media, the one thing that I encourage, and we ourselves do, is that, when people post things about mental illness and substance abuse, especially if someone loses a loved one to it, to limit our comments and our questions of what happened and how did that happen, and to give time to the family and to understand the circumstances. So that is something that I've had, our team. We never, say anything or do anything or respond to any type of negative media. More as when it comes to substance abuse and mental illness, I would just say that the media coverage around it is needed, but I would seek what you're doing now, right? You came to people who understand it and work in the field, and just like you would talk to a specialist about their field. I recommend that you always do that. You get the right people and the people who understand this and that are dealing with this
for sure
on the shows.
Yes, and I want to ask you about access again. Access has been serving the community for over now 49 years, So anything else? Should we touch base on domestic violence a little bit, Mona?
Absolutely. We've seen an increase in the cases over during the duration of this pandemic so far. And it's pretty much been alarming. And we have, an amazing program at Access. We have over 25 mental health staff who include attorneys in the program, case managers, again, peers. As you may know, we do an annual fundraising dinner to support these families throughout the year. We have transitional housing. But what's alarming here is that the survivors are now trapped in the homes with their abusers. A place that most of us find safe is not safe for them right now. And so we want to make sure that these individuals reach out for help and know where to go for help. And it's even the phone call, picking up the phone is hard for them, especially if the abuser is in the home, and especially when children are in the home. So we have seen an increase, and we have our support.
How big was the increase? Is it a high increase of numbers of cases?
Across the board, we have seen a tremendous increase in volume and people reaching out. Again, across the board when it comes to mental health, domestic violence, sexual abuse, and substance abuse. So across the board, we have seen an increase. And again, Access has over 120 programs. And as you mentioned, we've been around for 49 years. We have 5 main divisions. We have our social services, youth and ed, entrepreneurship, community health and research, and employment and training. We also have our national programming. So there is a lot of work, that Access
does. A lot going on.
We do have a lot going on, but also we want to make sure that people, take advantage of the resources that are available to them and get the help that they need. And, these are very unprecedented times. These are very challenging times for it's a global pandemic right now, and it's affecting people around the world. And we just, it's very, very important for people to take care of their mental health. And, there's a huge correlation between mental health and physical health. And at Access, we focus on integration of health. We look at the person as a whole. We look at all of their circumstances to ensure that the family gets the support that they need. And, you can't look at a person and just look at mental health. You're looking at their physical health. A person with, depression, for example, if they have chronic depression, they're going to neglect their physical health. And then that's where you start seeing, high rates of diabetes and hypertension and other problems. So again, I emphasize on the importance of getting help. And the sooner that a person reaches out and gets the help that they need, the better off that they'll be able to, be able to live a normal life and be able to control their illness and
Yes, we certainly can use the help for sure. I mean, we thank Access so much for all of these things that you talked about right now. But the fact that we are not considered minority, does that make it hard to get more funds for the programs, especially for mental illness and substance abuse?
Yes, oh, absolutely. It's, that's always been a challenge. We are not considered a minority. And when we're classified under white. And so, Access over the last 25 years, we hold a health summit. And, the reason behind that health summit is really to bring experts and scholars and researchers and health professionals together. And we work very closely with the local universities and academics and health centers. We do small pilot, small community research projects on the different areas that we just talked about, and that's kind of how we make the case, because we don't have the national data to support the needs of the Arab American community. So it continues to be a challenge, and we hope that at one point in time that we in the census that we will be considered a minority. But it makes things harder in terms of research and understanding the need and for funding opportunities. So, we're hopeful that will change one day.
So it's getting better for sure.
When you look at funding, as I just said, the demand keeps growing. And so the need for staffing keeps growing. And with that comes, funding. And so that's, we need all the funding that we can get to support the programming. But one last thing that I want to note, there is a shortage in mental health professionals at the time too. And especially when you're working with a diverse community, you want to make sure that your staffing is bilingual and culturally competent and, understands the community needs. And there is a shortage that continues to be a challenge as well. So if there's any fully licensed therapists out there that are looking for work, we would love, for you to apply. And there's a huge need. There's a huge need across the board.
Great. And your final thought, Mona?
My final thoughts is, I just hope that we give hope to everyone. Our doors are open, for everyone. And I'm very blessed and humbled to be able to be working in this field and for an organization that is about people. And I do have to say that I think the reason that we've sustained and are so strong together is because you become a family in Access, and you work like, there's nothing, they say nothing is thicker than blood. And at Access, it's not even a job. It's not a place of like, I'm going to do my job and I'm going home, or this is like my coworker. It's family. I mean, my kids love to come there. They love to learn from there. And I just hope that we are able to provide people with all the needs that we can. And if we are not able to provide it, we will certainly find a way to find our partners who can provide it. And I wish everyone to be safe and healthy. And I hope you guys continue to join us on our virtual awareness and our webinars, and have your kids engage. We're looking to have more kids join our youth groups. And I hope that we can always remember everyone that's part of our community. I always want to shed light on our people who are in recovery. And, there's support groups out there for them. And I always want to make sure that I, give my condolences to anyone who's lost a loved one to mental health or substance abuse, and now to COVID. So my prayers and love and my heart is open to everyone. So if you need anything, I'm here. We're all here. And for everyone observing Ramadan Mubarak.
Thank you. I just realized something, that I was not seeing the comments for some reason, and now they appeared. Would you be able to just answer a couple of questions before you guys leave?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Okay. Yeah. We have, Mahdi Haidar, what he's saying, you are 100% Mona. As soon as someone dies, everyone starts asking questions instead of trying to comfort the family of the deceased. And I'm sure you guys, what do you think of that?
So, I can speak about this from a personal aspect. You have to give time. We've always went to people and talked to the person themselves. We've always supported the families while the person is in the process of getting help. Now we're looking at what happens to the quietness. When I lost my loved one to substance abuse, something was said to me that stuck with me for so long, which was, it's the week after the person passes, it's the quietness. People come to the funeral and they talk and there's so much there, but then after, what happens after? And so we just want to make sure that, any kind of questions or any comments that you feel like you need answered, I promise you don't need them as much as the family needs your support. Yes. Our community needs to be who they really are. You see it now, we're a beautiful, loving, and caring community, but when it comes to death, sometimes we overwhelm the families, so, just give them space, give them time, and really let them learn to be comfortable and have to live with what they're dealing with. My vision and my goal, part of my work, is to be able to see these mothers and these family members that have lost loved ones come together and support one another.
Yeah.
Because that is the way that they will be able to survive this and get through this. You start to feel like you're alone, and you start to feel like you're going to blame yourself, and you start to feel like, what happened? What did I do wrong? And for someone who works in the field, and I had every resource at the tip of my fingers, I felt that way. But alhamdulillah, I'm very blessed to have the family that I have and the support that I have from my family and from my Access family. I remember the day that this happened to me, or the week that this happened to me, I couldn't see myself coming back into this work. And my mother said, no way, because you have to do it. You have to do it because you have a voice and you talk a lot. So use it and help others. And I really, really hope that we can. I really hope that this gets out to anyone. If you need anything, you want to just talk, we have our hotline for substance abuse. And you can reach out to us. We have our substance abuse advocate that works with the Dearborn Police, and he's an amazing individual. And we have our peer coaches that I think are our golden ticket. They're individuals who have been through struggles and can understand people. So
thank you. We thank you for that, for sure. And we have a message from Lina Harajle. Such smart, talented, beautiful ladies. We are lucky to have you as community champions. And we say hi to Lina, and we love you. And from Hassan Mastrah, why do you think our community think low of mental illness? And okay, one more question, okay? We have a question from Robin. Do you think that doctors have been playing the right role in encouraging positive mental health? And how do you think doctors and medical professionals can be more involved in addressing psychological symptoms?
This is actually a great question. And as I was speaking on integration of health, it's extremely important that we focus on the person as a whole. So a lot of times when they go to their primary care, it's so important that even if they're seeking, therapy or psychiatric services elsewhere, that there's coordination among the primary care and the psychiatrist and mental health professionals to ensure that the person is getting the care that they need. So that's a very, very important role. And at Access, whether, if someone comes to us and they're seeking mental health services, but they decide that they want to, have a primary care doctor elsewhere, to us, long as they're seeking the help that they need, that's all that matters. It's incorporated in their treatment plan. There's coordination of care that happens in which we communicate, and that's going to be critical moving forward. And we encourage all physicians and all, psychiatrists and all health providers to communicate, because it's a better outcome for the patient and client at the end.
I want to thank both of you tonight for being with us. I want to thank Access for serving the community for such a long time. And I want to thank our viewers. And that was Mona Makki, the Director of Community Health and Research Center, and Abdallah-Hijazi, Community Engagement Manager. Thank you so much. And thank you, our viewers, for watching. Stay home and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Appreciate it.